Okay, so for today's center, you're going to be learning about various text structures, also known as organizational patterns. Just kind of depends on how you see it. So when we're talking about text structures, we're really trying to focus on how the author decided to set up their text. What format did they choose to use? Now, these are typically used within informational texts. You don't typically see them in any kind of fictional text. So this is all for the nonfiction part. Now I want you to go ahead and take a look at our notes. Now at this point we should have our notes glued into our notebook and they should be folded. We have two sets for this station. The first set is the one that we're going to be writing and doing notes in. That's the one that is the trifold, and it says text structure for reading informational text. It also has your 5 different types on the front. That's where we're going to start for this screencast and for this station. Alright, so the first one we're really going to take a look at is going to be the compare and contrast format. When we're looking at this format, we're basically going to be comparing and contrasting, so talking about the similarities and the differences between, it could be people, ideas, it could be an item, or things. So that's basically the premises of that. You're comparing and contrasting something with something else. Some questions to ask yourself for this is something being compared? Are there differences? Are there similarities? You also want to ask yourself if you see any signal words. Now, many of these have signal words with them, so if you see the signal words, you're going to be highlighting them within the passage or the paragraph. Some examples for the signal words for this particular type would be similarly, differ, also, same, both. On the other hand, any of those are definitely going to be signal words. So if you see that within a passage, that is basically telling you there's a good chance that this is a compare and contrast. If you notice at the bottom there, it says think about it. This would be the visual or the graphic organizer to organize any kind of facts from the text. Okay, so as you're going through this in your notes, you need to write down the questions. So it says here, ask yourself, that should be is something being compared. So you want to write that down in your first box where it says questions to ask and answer. This is one question that you need to ask yourself when reading a passage to kind of identify if it's a compare and contrast type. Is something being compared? If it is, that's most likely going to be the compare and contrast. Other ones I want you to write down in that same box would be the question, are there differences and are there similarities? So you should have these 3 questions written down in the first box in that trifold under the column that says questions to ask and answer. Once you've written these ones down, I want you to go ahead and write down your signal words as well. For this, I would like for you to write down every single signal word just because I want you to make sure that you know each type. Okay, so write down all of the signal words in the box that you see. You can pause it here if you need to, that way you don't lose time and track of where you are. Alright, so next, once you've written down the signal questions and the signal words, you're going to go ahead and you're also going to write down the graphic organizer. The graphic organizer usually associated with the compare and contrast is the Venn diagram. Okay, so in the big, large box, I'd like for you to draw a Venn diagram. That would be your visual for this one. And then next, I want you to just take a look at the practice. You don't have to write anything down for this, but this is just an example. So for the example paragraph, this is what it says. Instagram and Facebook are both great social media sites that help people stay connected and updated in each other's lives. Both platforms allow for users to share images and videos with one another. The main difference between the two are that Instagram is exclusively for the purpose of pictures and short videos. However, Facebook has many additional features, such as writing on friends' walls and updating personal statuses. So as I'm looking at this, I notice that I have many signal words, and I'm also going to ask myself, is something being compared? Are there differences? Are there similarities? And right off the bat, I automatically know that there are. Looking at this, I can tell that I have 2 things that are being compared and contrasted with each other, one being Instagram and the other being Facebook. So I'm looking for any signal words, and I do notice that here I have the word both. So I'm going to highlight that. And I also have another both right up here. Instagram and Facebook are both, so I'm going to highlight that. As I'm kind of scanning through, I'm going to look for any others. I see difference. That's a really big indicator. The two exclusively for the purpose of pictures and short videos. However, that's going to be another signal word, so I'm going to highlight that. And I think I've caught them all. So this is what I really want you to do, and you'll be doing this on your next set of notes, the one right next to it. You'll be reading the passage, you'll be drawing and filling in your graphic organizer, and you're going to be highlighting any signal words you see within your passages. So that's what we're going to really take a look at first. The next type, let's move on to cause and effect. When we're talking about cause and effect, we're talking about the way that the author describes an event or several events that's going to act as the cause. And because of this event, there's going to be an effect to them. Okay, so because something happens, there's events that follow as an effect. So our signal words are because, as a result, since, however, if, then, due to, and consequently. Now, it's not just kind of restricted to only these words, but these are the most popular that you see. So please write these down in your signal words box. You can pause the video here if you need to while you write that down. Next, you're also going to take a look at the signal questions. You're going to ask yourself, what happened, why did it happen, and what caused it to happen? You need to write these questions down in the first box under questions to ask and answer for cause and effect. Once you've written down the signal words and the signal questions, you're going to go ahead and take a look at the graphic organizers. Now with this graphic organizer, I put a pretty simple one, just a cause leading to an effect. Now sometimes you might see multiple cause boxes and multiple effect boxes. But for this one, I just really want you to look at the one cause and at least focus on just one effect. Now you may have multiple effects because of a cause, but I just want you to keep it simple for now. The passage here says, I completely forgot to study for my English test. I remembered writing it down, however, I didn't check my assignment book, and it slipped my mind. As a result, I had to guess on just about every question. The next day, I didn't even want to make eye contact with my teacher because I knew she would be disappointed in my work. She passed the test back, and due to my lack of studying, I had one of the lowest scores in the class. So looking at this, I need to ask myself, first of all, what happened? In this case, someone didn't study for a test. Why did it happen? Basically, it slipped their mind, right? And then what caused it to happen, that's going to go side by side with that. So I'm looking for any signal words. So I have however here, and I know that that's going to be a signal word. Now keep in mind, however was also a signal word for compare and contrast, so you have to really be careful and look at it as a whole. Okay, that's why these signal questions are here. Those are questions you really want to ask yourself. Another phrase that I'm seeing is as a result. So as a result, that means there's an effect to whatever happened. Let's see if I can find anything else. Due to, that's going to be another one that's also kind of relaying to an effect. So I have however, as a result, the next day I need to make eye contact. She passed test. I think that's all of them. So those are going to be the really big ones. Those are my signal words. I have quite a few of them in there. So moving on to problem and solution. When we're talking about the problem and solution text, we're talking about the author presenting a problem and then giving information and explaining one or more solutions to this problem. Typically, you want to ask yourself, what is the problem? Is anything being done to solve the problem? So these questions you need to write down in your notes. Once you've written those down, we have a few signal words here. So we have words like issue, problem, solve, conflict, figure out, deduce, solution. Those are words that you want to keep an eye out for. Visuals are going to be very similar to that of cause and effect, and I want to tell you it's very easy to get confused with problem and solution and cause and effect. So you really want to ask yourself the main questions. What is the problem? Is anything being done to solve the problem? Now in my last story, obviously the problem was that they didn't study, but there was no solution presented, right? I didn't say in that story, well, she hurried up and tried to study for the test. She just kind of had to deal with the consequences, with the effects. All right, and then for the next one here, the practice. Many people use their cell phones as their alarm to wake up. Some people have problems with hitting the snooze button and sleeping past their selected time. One solution to this issue is placing your phone in an area that you would have to get up out of bed to turn off. It is said that physically getting up helps wake the body naturally. Another way to solve this problem is by setting multiple alarms at very loud volumes. That way, even if you do hit the snooze button, another alarm will sound. So looking at this, I need to ask myself, what is the problem? So if I'm looking here, my problem is that people are snoozing or sleeping past their alarm clocks. So then I need to ask myself, is anything being done to solve the problem or any suggestions being given? In this case, yes, there is. They're saying two different possible solutions that I could use. Now I'm going to go ahead and take a look at any signal words. So I'm looking for words like problem, which is right here. Solution is also another kind of big giveaway for it. As I'm kind of sifting through solve, I have another problem here down below. So each of these are going to really work as those signal words to really kind of hint or give me a good indication for which type it's going to be. I missed issue there. All right, so make sure you have this down in your notes, and we're going to move on to chronological order, also known as sequencing. Sequencing, or chronological order, is also a very popular text structure or pattern of organization. With this, authors are going to use sequential order to explain how things happen. They're always going to start from beginning to end, so they're going to go chronologically. You often see this type of format when you're talking about directions, especially with like recipes or instructions of any type. Okay, I think this one's very easy to pick out. You have very obvious signal words, and also the questions you need to ask yourself are, what events, items, or steps are listed? Do they have to happen in this order? So that's what you need to ask yourself. Visuals are going to be seen below, so basically it's just showing you the order in which they happen. What happens first, what happens second, what happens third. Signal words include first, next, later, then, finally, second, dates after that, today, before, another, and there's so many more. Think of them almost like your transition words, okay? First, second, third, next, then, finally, all of those. So here's an example. Through the ages, Pennsylvania has seen many interesting events. The state was founded in 1681 by William Penn. Later, Pennsylvania was the site for important war battles. After that, Pennsylvania was home to new factories during the Industrial Revolution. Today, Pennsylvania continues to make history. So as I'm looking at this, I want to make sure I pick up on any kind of keyword. So even though this wasn't one that was listed, through the ages, that's also going to be a pretty good indication that this is going in chronological order, going in sequence. Another one is going to be later. That's a transition word, and that's going to give it away as a clue. After is another transition word. And then even the word today. So those are going to be all of my signal words, all of my clues. So make sure you have this down in your set of notes, and then we will continue on to the very last type. All right, so our last type is going to be the description. With the description, it's going to be very visual. You're going to be focusing on a lot of adjectives and prepositional phrases. It's going to give lots of details to create that mental image or that mental picture for you, okay? You need to ask yourself, what specific person, place, or item is being described? How is it being described? And then what is important to remember about it? So this is going to be something to create that mental image. And if you take a look at the signal words, you have words like for instance, such as, to illustrate, for example, to begin with, in addition, including also. Now be careful because you also are going to have a lot of adjectives. If you see a lot of adjectives focusing on your senses, what you're seeing, what you're smelling, what you're hearing, those are going to be indications as well that this is going to be a description. Okay? Prepositional phrases also give it away. So as I'm looking, here's my example. I absolutely love my dog Finn. He is a Pembroke Welsh Corgi and also such a fun little guy with the goofiest personality. For instance, I really believe that he can understand English. When I talk to him, he turns his head from the left to the right and has the most serious look on his face, like he's concentrating on what I'm saying. He also has these short little legs and huge pointed ears. To illustrate, envision a dachshund but with a stockier build and without the floppy ears. So as I'm looking through, I see a couple